Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me. Hello, it's Monday. I hope you're feeling excited about the week. I'm feeling a little, I don't know, not poopy, but maybe groggy. I'm not quite sure what I feel right now, but I'm not feeling on top of the world. I did have a big weekend. I had a friend come visit me on Saturday, which was amazing. And we went to the Independence Day celebration in my neighborhood, and there was a festival, and there were vendors and food trucks, and I personally enjoyed a groovy grape Kona ice, one of my favorite things. And yeah, so it was a lot, it was a lot of stimulation. I was really looking forward to the water ski show, but unfortunately, we could not get a parking space up there. It was just too crowded at that point. Everybody was trying to get up to their spots for the fireworks show, which we cannot look at the I cannot look at the fireworks. So we were only going to go for the water ski show. And my husband, um, uh, mine just went blank. My husband suggested that he could drop me off and I could watch the water ski show and then he could pick me back up. And I was like, I mean, it's not as fun if I don't do it with you. Um, so we didn't do that. But it's fine. It's fine. I think I had done enough. And then the next day, yesterday, there was an estate sale. And I went there hoping that I could find some vintage jewelry for some of my craft projects that I'm working on. And I did. I hit the jackpot. So yesterday I spent time going through all the jewelry, which was super fun. One of my favorite things to do is go through old vintage jewelry, and it was in really, really good condition. So there was even a couple pieces that I'm like, okay, so I'm keeping that. And some of them are like, I think other people would think they're super gaudy, but to me, they make me happy. So I kept a couple rings for myself and I have a hard time um, upcycling rings, like rings for your fingers. So I'm just gonna keep those and wear them, even though they're really, really sparkly with rhinestones. I think they're fun. And I like to wear sparkly things. So that is why I'm feeling whatever way I'm feeling today. I did oversleep, so I didn't get to go to my sobriety meeting. So instead, I spent time writing my book, which that's what I've been trying to do when I don't get up early enough for my meetings. I would like to sit down with my book every day, but I haven't quite gotten that into a routine quite yet. Um, so that's what's going on in my life. And today, what I wanted to talk about is presence. As I was working on my book today, I was thinking about what presence means to me and what mindfulness means to me. I think that the word mindfulness is way overused these days, especially when people don't define it. They just use it as this like generic, almighty term for being present in the moment. And I think that there's a lot more to being present. As I think back to when I was drinking, I spent the first 42 years of my life, it feels like, maybe not the first 42, because the first 15 or so, give or take a year, I was not drinking to the extent that I was the the following years after that. But I really spent the majority of my life what felt like sleepwalking. And I was functioning. I felt like I was present, but really I was escaping mentally in a lot of different ways. It wasn't until I found alcohol that I was truly just not emotionally and spiritually present. So what the way that I like to define mindfulness is mentally being where my feet are. So, like, I can walk my dog while replaying yesterday's conversation with a friend. I can sit through dinner, like, worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, an appointment I have tomorrow. Um, I think that lack of mindfulness even shows up when we're having a conversation with someone and I'm listening to someone and I'm already planning my response. And I have an old friend of mine who we used to we used to actually laugh about how when we listened to each other, we were actually just thinking about what we were going to say next. And we had just like this mutual understanding that that's what was happening. But we were drinking, so of course we weren't 100% present. And I think that it's fascinating that our bodies can be in one place while our minds are in somewhere else, some place else. But even though we have the capability to do that, it doesn't mean that we should always be using it. Um, when my mind is not where my feet are, I am not living fully in the present moment. I'm on autopilot. And something that's interesting that I was thinking about was I don't have a a an autopilot that functions the way that it used to. So, um, what I mean is like I can't multitask the way that I could before my stroke. So I can't cook and have a conversation at the same time, like I used to be able to do. I used to be able to, man, I mean, I prided myself in being able to multitask at work. And yes, I know, and I used to tell my staff this all the time. I know that we can only do one thing at a time, 100%. If I'm gonna divide my attention to two different things, I'm only doing each thing 50%. So I used to, going back to like escaping, I used to use the alcohol to escape, but that's not the only way. I've learned through working the steps that I can escape. And I'm learning more and more over the years how to not escape. Like I can escape through listening to a book. I can escape into social media. I don't have the ability anymore to escape into watching TV, but that's how a lot of people escape. My favorite escape is constant busyness and multitasking. I found was an incredible way of escaping. The more I divide my attention, the less bandwidth that I have for my mind to travel places that I don't want it to go. And I don't know that I'll ever beat constant busyness. It seems to be something I thrive at, even though I can't multitask as much as I used to be able to. That's probably a good thing, but it can be really frustrating, I think, for me because if I'm having a conversation with my husband and I'm cooking, I have to actually say, I can't talk anymore. I have to focus. Or else it's just I'm totally gonna screw it up or just not be able to we're not gonna eat dinner. So I think many of these escape routes aren't necessarily unhealthy, but I think it's important to question why I'm doing them. Am I listening to a book to avoid something else? To avoid that like need to constantly problem solve. And I've noticed that I do that when I just don't want to deal. I just don't want to deal with what's happening between my ears. Say on a day that it wouldn't be a day like today. A day like today is when I can't handle, I think because I was overstimulated over the weekend, I can't handle really doing my crafts and listening to a book at the same time. But there are days that I will go for a walk with Autumn, and I really don't want to be left alone between my ears. What did somebody say this weekend? They said, my mind can be like a back alley in a bad neighborhood that I should not go to alone. And I thought, yeah, exactly. And that's when I try to escape. So even though I don't drink anymore, I I like to work on being introspective. So there's this amazing book that I listened to back when I was still working, and it's by Amy Cuddy, and it's called Presence. I think it's a really popular book. It's called Presence: Bringing Your Boldest Self to Your Biggest Challenge. And I started listening to it because I wanted to get help managing my physical anxiety symptoms before and during public speaking. Because I mean, I would get to the point where like my face was shaking and my voice was shaking and stuff. And I was like, this is just unmanageable. I need to educate myself on how I can calm my anxiety symptoms. So this was really early in my sobriety, really early in my career, how it was my career was, I felt like in Rachel's world, was taking off, and I was starting to get into the role of management. And because of that, I was doing public speaking a lot more. Um, this was back when I really felt like being present was just paying attention to my surroundings. So this book was starting to help me recognize what was going on inside of me. So presence is not just paying attention to my surroundings, but it's paying attention to my surroundings with appreciation and gratitude, experiencing the moment, noticing the beauty, and listening to something other than the voice inside my head. And I think that's where presence requires me to look inward and explore what I'm feeling. So, my psychiatrist that I go to now, I've been to many different talk therapy specialists, but the psychiatrist that I go to now opened my eyes. I mean, I already knew this, but we actually were talking about the fact that human beings have an incredible ability to feel multiple things at once. So I can feel fear and excitement at the same time. And when I am public speaking, which I don't have the opportunity to do as much as I used to, now that I'm retired, but I recall feeling that fear, that anxiety, but also feeling really excited. I love to get on my soapbox. Like, I love to be center stage. That's why I loved being in theater early in life. And I loved doing public speaking because I like being in that position. But it doesn't get rid of the fear, the I don't know, anxiety. I can't think of the word, like the feeling that I'm being judged and all of that stuff, that natural human stuff. So I can feel stressed, but feel joyful at the same time. I can be afraid and be angry at the same time. So that's why it's even more important to take time to look inward. And I'm talking about when I say take time to look inward, I'm talking about actually pausing, actually stopping and being still in a moment that every part of you is is pulling you forward and screaming to you, take the next step, say this, make this comment. I'm talking about not doing that, not taking a step forward, not opening your mouth to respond, but instead, like, actually be still to see the whole picture of your life in that moment. And it's your surroundings, what's happening outside of you, and what is happening inside of you. I feel like mindfulness, when people talk about mindfulness, I think maybe they are referring to noticing your surroundings, noticing what task you're doing and thinking about the tasks you're doing. Like I hear so many people say, like mindful eating to eat mindfully means to think about what you're chewing and focus on the task of chewing. Okay. When you're taking a shower, like be in the shower, like your mind is in the shower and really take in the sensations of washing your hair, the water falling on your skin, the humidity of the air and all of that stuff and like being there. But to me, I feel like it's more than that. I feel like it is appreciating it, being grateful for it, not just noticing the the feel of the water on my skin, but being grateful that I get the opportunity to stand in that beautiful shower and have clean water falling on my skin and cleaning it. There's a lot of people in the world who don't have that. And so being grateful as well. One thing that I was also thinking about is being not only being aware of and noticing the people around me, their faces, but acknowledging the people that are behind the faces, acknowledging the experiences of the people behind the faces. And that, I think, is really about becoming curious. And I think the more that we are curious, the less reactive we are. Um, we can take that time, be still, and ask ourselves, like, what would happen if I don't open my mouth and engage in this situation? What would happen if I waited a little bit longer to respond instead of react? I had a boss who, um, a boss by adoption, not by hierarchy, but I had him tell me about like using silence to my benefit. And that's really what I'm talking about here. Like, what would happen if I don't do anything right now? If I don't respond, if I don't walk away, if I don't move, like what would happen around me if I don't participate when everything in me is screaming that I should? What fear is driving my behavior? What am I feeling? Is it a resentment or is it a resentment that's covering up a lifelong of sadness? Like I learned that through step 4. Um, is my ego getting in the way of my relationship with another person? I have had that happen way more times than I honestly want to admit. What is my motivation in any given situation? This introspection is rooted in the 12 steps. And when I think about how I came to AA to learn how to not drink and still be able to function happily in life. But what it really taught me is how to be introspective. And that's emotional sobriety. Emotional sobriety requires that mindfulness that's overly used and introspection. And those two together encourage me to show up moment by moment, no matter what. And I've noticed over the years, so far as I've been sober and trying to practice the principles of the program in all of my affairs, that curiosity, that is the mindfulness and introspection. Curiosity seems to look a lot like courage. And each decision that I make in my life, in any moment, beautifully bridges the world outside of me with the world inside. Um, so that is what's been going on in my mind this morning. And I think it's a nice reflection for the day. So I hope you have a beautiful day. I'll try to post this before noon today, and I will talk to you next time.